Before Eve, there was another woman. God made her exactly the way He made Adam. Same dust, same moment, same dignity. He set her down next to the first man on earth and expected the two of them to get along. They lasted about one night. The fight wasn't about apples or snakes. It was about who got to be on top during sex. Adam said him. She said neither of them outranked the other. They were made from the same earth, so they were equal. Full stop. Adam wouldn't budge, so she spoke a forbidden name out loud, grew a pair of wings, and flew straight out of Eden before God had even finished setting it up. Her name was Lilith, and what happened over the next 3 days, a manhunt, a threat against her at the bottom of the sea, and a bargain that ends with 100 of her children dying every single day, forever, is one of the strangest, darkest, and most quietly radical stories in all of Jewish folklore. For 2,000 years afterward, Jewish mothers wrote her name on amulets, hung red ribbons over cradles, and prayed she wouldn't come for their newborns in the night. Let's go find out why. Act 1. The Fight in the Garden. The story comes from a text called the Alphabet of Ben Sira, written somewhere between the 8th and 10th centuries. Old, but not ancient. Quick bit of context, and then we're moving on. Jewish scholars had a real puzzle on their hands, because Genesis tells the creation story twice, and the two versions don't match. In the first, God makes man and woman at the exact same time, as equals. In the second, the one everyone knows, Eve gets built later, out of Adam's rib, clearly secondary. Some rabbis solved the contradiction with a clean explanation. There were two women. Eve was the second. Lilith was the first. Here's how Ben Sira tells it. God looks at Adam, alone in the new world, and decides that's not good. So He reaches into the same earth He used for Adam and makes a second person from it, fully equal status, made the exact same way. He names her Lilith and brings her to Adam. And, almost immediately, they start arguing about sex. Adam wants the dominant position. Lilith refuses. Her exact reasoning, straight from the text: we're equal, because we both came from the same earth. Why would I lie beneath you? Neither one gives an inch. So Lilith does something nobody expects. She says God's most secret, unspeakable name out loud, the Tetragrammaton, the name so sacred that pronouncing it was treated as an act of serious spiritual power. And the second she finishes saying it, she's airborne. Wings gone, into the sky, out of Eden, before the story has even properly started. Adam is left standing alone in the garden a second time. He goes straight to God and complains, "The woman you gave me has fled." Act 2. The Hunt and the Bargain. God's response is fast. He dispatches 3 angels, named directly in the text, Sinoi, Sansonoi, and Samangeloth, with one job: bring her back. They track her to the Red Sea. Not a random location. This is the exact body of water where, generations later, the Israelites will escape slavery in Egypt by walking straight through it. The story is deliberately placing Lilith at the site of liberation, before liberation has even been invented yet, fleeing the very first instance of one person being told to submit to another. The angels catch her there, and here's a detail that doesn't make it into the sanitized retellings. By the time they find her, Lilith has already coupled with what the text calls the Great Demon. Later traditions name him directly as Samael, a figure associated elsewhere with the angel of death itself. She's not alone anymore, and she's not interested in coming back. The angels give her an ultimatum: come back to Adam, or we drown you in this sea right now. Lilith's answer is the line that's echoed through Jewish folklore for 1,000 years since. Leave me alone. I was made for exactly one purpose: to weaken newborn babies. I have power over a boy from birth until his 8th day. I have power over a girl for 20 days. That is what I am. That is what I'll do. The angels don't let it go that easily. They tell her, fine. But if you refuse to come back, you accept that 100 of your own children will die, every single day, forever. Lilith accepts the terms. The loophole she leaves behind. Here's the detail that turned this myth into an actual, physical, household object you can still buy in Jerusalem today. Before the angels let her go, Lilith makes one promise in return. Anytime she sees their three names, Senoi, Sansonoi, Semangelof, written down near a child, written on an amulet, painted on a wall, she will not touch that child. That single line is the reason an entire industry of protective amulets existed in Jewish communities for over 1,000 years. Parents wrote those three angel names on slips of parchment and slipped them under newborns' pillows. Red ribbons were tied to cradles. Incantation bowls, actual ceramic bowls inscribed with spiraling protective text, were buried under the thresholds of homes, specifically to trap Lilith and every demon like her before they could reach a sleeping family. Act 3. The Mother of Demons. Once Lilith leaves the Bible's margins and enters the wider body of Jewish folklore, she stops being one character and becomes something closer to a category of threat. The Babylonian Talmud, centuries older than the Ben Sira story by the way, which means people were already afraid of something called Lilith long before anyone gave her this exact backstory, describes her with specific frightening physical detail. She has long, wild hair. She has wings. She is dangerous, specifically to a man sleeping alone in a house. The Talmud states this directly as a warning. Don't sleep by yourself, or Lilith might find you. And it's not just seduction. Jewish folklore describes Lilith and the demons under her as capable of fathering, or mothering, entire broods of further demons just from a sleeping man's nighttime emissions. She's not just dangerous to be near, she's reproductively dangerous. Every encounter risks creating more of her kind. By the time the Zohar, the foundational text of Jewish mysticism, written around 1300 in Spain, gets hold of her, Lilith has been promoted dramatically. She's no longer just a rogue ex-wife with a grudge. She becomes the literal wife of Samael, standing as a dark mirror to the feminine side of God himself. In Kabbalistic thought, she's elevated into a cosmic principle, evil with a gender, evil with a throne. Evil specifically shaped like a woman who said no, and the baby-killing reputation didn't fade. If anything, it got more specific and more frightening with every century. Popular belief held that Lilith targeted children precisely during the most vulnerable, liminal windows of their life. The first week for boys, before circumcision, the first weeks for girls, before they were considered fully settled into the world. Infant mortality, which was tragically common and medically unexplained for most of human history, got a face and a name. Grief got somewhere to point. Act 4. The Physical Evidence. This isn't just a story that lived in books. People built physical defenses against Lilith for over 1,000 years, and a lot of that material survives today. Incantation bowls, dating back as early as the 6th century, have been pulled out of the ground across what's now Iraq and Iran. Ceramic bowls with spiral-written Aramaic incantations covering the inside surface, specifically naming and binding Lilith and demons like her. One surviving inscription, written to protect a woman named Rashnoi, goes as far as drafting Lilith a formal writ of divorce, a legal document banishing her from the household, the same way a husband would divorce a wife, weaponizing the very domestic legal system Lilith had refused to live under in the first place. Amulets followed the same three angel name formula straight out of the Ben Sira story for centuries afterward. The Israel Museum holds an 18th or 19th century amulet that shows Lilith bound in a drawn chain, with a direct Hebrew inscription, "Bind Lilith in chains." Sefer Raziel, a Kabbalistic text printed in Amsterdam in 1701, includes literal diagrams for parents on exactly how to draw a protective amulet against her. And it didn't stop at amulets. Red ribbons tied to cradles. A particular Yiddish folk tradition has the prophet Elijah personally confronting Lilith and her demon escort, demanding she reveal her secret true names, Abitu, Abizu, and others. On the theory that speaking a demon's hidden name strips away its power over you. Even the word lullaby has a disputed but genuinely fascinating theory behind it. Some etymologists have traced it to a Hebrew phrase, Lilu Abi, roughly meaning Lilith, be gone, a protective chant sung over a cradle that, over centuries, softened into the gentle bedtime song parents hum today. If that origin is right, an enormous number of parents have been unknowingly singing an anti-demon incantation to their children every single night for generations. 5. From demon to icon. For roughly 12 centuries, nobody was reclaiming Lilith. She was simply feared, a villain, a threat you protected your children from, full stop. Then, in the late 20th century, something shifted. Jewish feminist scholars and writers looked back at the actual text of the Ben Sira story and noticed something the centuries of fear had buried. Lilith's entire offense was refusing to be subordinate to someone who claimed authority over her purely because of when he happened to be created. Her exact argument, we are equal because we are made the same way, from the same earth, is read in a different light, not really villainous. It's just true. In 1972, theologian Judith Plaskow published a modern retelling called The Coming of Lilith, reimagining her not as a child killer, but as a woman who simply refused to live under unjust authority, who flees Eden and eventually circles back to find and befriend Eve. The two of them realizing they were turned against each other by the same system that demanded Lilith's submission in the first place. In 1997, musician Sarah McLachlan named an entire touring women's music festival after her, Lilith Fair, explicitly invoking the idea of a woman who said no and lived with the consequences rather than capitulating. Lilith tattoos, art, and altars have become genuinely common symbols of autonomy and refusal. It's a genuinely rare thing in religious mythology. A figure who spent over 1,000 years as the single most feared threat to a newborn child, fully rehabilitated within living memory into a symbol of standing your ground. So what actually is Lilith? Genuinely depends entirely on who you ask and when. Ask a Babylonian Jewish family in the year 600, and she's the reason you don't sleep alone in an empty house. Ask a frightened parent in medieval Germany, and she's the reason there's a red ribbon on the cradle and 3 angel names tucked under the pillow. Ask a Kabbalist in 1300, and she's the literal consort of the angel of death, evil given a face and a gender. Ask a feminist scholar in 1972, and she's the first person in human history, mythological or otherwise, to simply say, "No, we're equal, and I'm not staying somewhere that pretends otherwise." One ancient story, one refused position in bed, 2,000 years of consequences, in both directions. This is Sacred and Profane. Demon, feminist icon, or both at once. Let me know where you land in the comments.